Welcome to Rico 12. I'm Justin, your host and a grateful child of an all powerful, all loving God and an addict. And while I'm not a saint, I'm still practicing progress, not perfection, in my walk in recovery. Rico 12 is all about exploring the common threads of addiction and sharing tools and hope from those on a similar path. We gather from diverse backgrounds, faiths, and places to learn and support one another. Our speakers represent various fellowships, addictions, and afflictions, thus showing the common threads of recovery no matter our addiction or affliction. Today's speaker for the 242nd meeting is Yitzy R., who spoke to us a little over 3 years ago on meeting number 33. His topic then was, I've recovered, now what? And you should go check out that later if if it's been a bit since you heard it or if you have never heard it. Today, Yitzy's share will be about being a new parent in recovery, and I look forward to hearing his experience, strength, and hope. And we'll get to his talk in the Q&A afterwards in just a minute. First, for a little bit of business. Rico 12 has several recovery resources in our family of podcasts and social media communities. To learn more, listen more, connect more, or just hang out and learn and grow with us, you can check out the other podcasts, Noodle It Out with Nikki M, which releases every Tuesday, the Big Book Roundtable, which releases every Thursday. And to learn more about each of these podcasts, and check out the chat in the show notes as we go along here. Or you can go to www.rico12.com. That's RECO12.com to join in this conversation and to learn more. And if you have questions, or if you would like to be a future speaker on Rico 12, I'm booking speakers in June right now. Reach out to me at rico12pod@gmail.com. That's RECO12pod@gmail.com, and we will get that ball rolling. Rico 12 is self-supporting, and your contributions help us continue our mission. Thank you so much this week to Barbara and all who are or have been contributors to Rico 12 and for being spearheads and supporting the Rico 12 cause. There are costs to doing this, and we appreciate your help and support in doing that. So if you feel so inclined, please consider giving a donation. You can do that at rico12.com/support, or click on the links that I will have in the chat in the show notes of the podcast for one-time or monthly donation options. Your support makes a difference in keeping us able to share these messages of recovery. We look forward each meeting to receiving the light reflected from our speakers. That light inspires hope, meaning, worth, and growth in us, the listening audience. Now I'm going to introduce our guest speaker for today, Yitzy R., and give a little bit of background on him. Yitzy has been in recovery for a number of years. His primary program is SA, although he appreciates all the S fellowships and utilizes what he can from each of them. Yitzy also has worked the program for codependency out of the Big Book, which essentially allowed him to become more emotionally sober and eventually start dating. More recently, he started working ACA, Adult Children of Alcoholics, which helped him put a voice to trauma that he wasn't aware of. This is a continuing journey, and Yitzy has already had a spiritual awakening as the result of getting started with facing his childhood. By God's grace, Yitzy got married to his wife, who is also in recovery. They now have a baby girl, and that has taken both of them on a deeper journey into recovery, healing from trauma, self-judgment, fear, and responsibilities. Take it away, Yitzy. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, so my mind, start off by just saying that my mind is a little fuzzled. I had a very busy morning. I did a little bit of prayer, meditation, I had a therapy session, and then I was most of the morning negotiating a new job that's happening that God just put in my lap, and it's insane. And that's been a bunch of back and forth between a couple of entities, couple of parties. And I'm staying at someone else's place and had to find a quiet place to sit down for this. So I remember I had a few minutes earlier in the morning, and I was reflecting. I'm like, I'm not worried about the share I'm not worried. I want to try to take a few minutes to connect to God before, so that I can, I could have the awareness of God with me. I know God's with me no matter, so I'm aware of it or not. But apparently the awareness of it is what makes all the difference. The awareness that leads to action is what makes all the difference for me. So yeah. So anyway, that's just a little bit about that. about just my fellowship journey. So like I started in SA, and my current sponsor is a fellow of mine in SAA, that has like a good recovery and a good message. And I bounce around. I go to one SAA meeting a week. I go to one or two SA meetings a week. I go to an ACA meeting. Um, yeah, and I try to balance everything else. Work. I'm in school for social work as well, and yeah, there's a lot going on. Um, yeah, bottom line to where to start with this. Because there are a lot of different parts to the story. Um, I guess it starts like a few months before, just to be like transparent. I'll start a few months. This is something I don't want to necessarily share, and I want to just put everything like on a pedestal and whatever. But a few months before I had a relapse in my SA program and I had to reset my sobriety, and that was a very good learning curve. I'm not going to talk about it too much here. I'm just going to say that I remember that night that I was like getting sober again. I turned to my wife and I said, the only thing that I have out of at that point I was like 4.5 years sober before that, and I said the thing that I have, the tool that's the most powerful, is knowing how to live a day sober, knowing how to live a day in the presence of God, and that I can do. Um, and just doing it, like not getting caught up in what I know, but doing it. And I think in those 3 months, I didn't miss an appointment with my wife at the doctor. Um, I made it work with work. They were flexible, whatever. I'm grateful to them. But like it was my commitment part to show my wife, that she could trust me again in that level. And then once the baby was born, like I feel like, I mean, we were both new parents. We actually didn't have much family support. Um, I did have a lot of general experience with babies. So I wasn't nervous. Like I have loads of nieces and nephews, but having your own child is a entirely different game than having, somebody you could hug, kiss, and then put down and move on with the day. So, yeah. So in short, I remember I was fully present. I think in a way that that whole relapse, so to speak, prepared me to be more serious and be more on my game, so that when the baby came, I was fully present and I wasn't running away and I wasn't doing anything. I was there with my wife in it for the full experience. So I remember, yeah, my wife gave birth. Thankfully, there were no complications. Everything went well. There were a lot of miracles that actually led up to that I'll throw in. My wife had like, but my wife was married before, and they weren't able to get pregnant, and she tried like all sorts of treatments and IVF and whatever, and it didn't, for whatever reason it didn't happen. And then whatever, she had like a pre-existing condition, and apparently with whatever, that marriage didn't last, and it wasn't a good fit for her. It was before her recovery journey and all that. But the beauty is that once we like a couple of months into marriage, we were like going to the doctor and speaking about it. And the funny thing, the message that I see in that is that we were at the doctor to discuss like fertility or whatever based on experience. We wanted to get pregnant, and the doctor was like giving us different ideas of exactly, ovulation, whatever. I'm not going to get into all the detail, but the bottom line was they were giving us like techniques. They were like, if it doesn't work within a few months, we're going to just go straight for the treatment, and we want, you know what I mean? Just like for that journey. And we both spoke about that. We spoke about during dating about if needed to, we would be open to adoption, because we both knew that we were transparent. She was transparent with me about her history. And bottom line, um, at that time we didn't know, but she was pregnant at the time that we went to the doctor, which is God saying, "Hi, Yitzy, I don't need your help. I'm fine. I'm doing just fine. Thank you." Just a reminder that I have sometimes from God. These little moments of like, God needs my participation, my cooperation, my willingness, my obedience, etc. But he doesn't. What he doesn't need is my help. The way I like seeing it is like, and my daughter is now 1, not 2, but like I just use the example of a 2-year-old who's helping the mom out with the carriage, let's say, and the parent doesn't need the help to pull the empty carriage up the stairs, but the 2-year-old wants to quote help the mom. That's how I see me helping God. But God just shows me over and over many, many ways. I don't. I need to show up and put an effort and show my willingness, and then whatever else happens is a result of God working His magic because I'm not in His way. Because my willingness means I move out of the way. I don't have control. So yeah, everything about this. I remember the first day I got home, my wife was still in the hospital. I ran home to get a couple things. I was a chicken without a head. Uh, that's what I remember. I remember being overwhelmed. I remember knowing that it's okay to be overwhelmed. I remember a number of messages from some friends of mine that have children, and I spoke with them before. And one of my friends basically told me that in the beginning everything's on autopilot, and then it'll kick in. You know, the you don't have to think through everything that needs to happen and analyze everything that needs to happen, and it can get very overwhelming, and it was for both of us. But things will develop, and it will get to a place of a routine of some sort. So I'm grateful we actually discussed this. So my wife went to like a convalescent home for about a week, and I'm grateful like we saved up for it. We got it, some of it covered, whatever it was, and so there, whatever. In short, during that week, I wrapped up what I needed to at work, and I took a leave of absence that they allowed me to take for I don't know, like almost 3 months, and I was just home with my wife and the baby. So one of the weird things that came up that relates specifically to recovery is that for that time, I just let all my sponsees know like the day before, I'm not going to be available for an undisclosed period of time. Whoever I was working with, whoever I was in touch with, I don't know what anything's going to look like. And then, yeah, during those about 3 months until I went back to work, I did not work with any sponsees because my priority was to be there for my wife and the baby, and there was a lot to do. There was a lot of things that needed to happen on a regular basis. We had to get into a routine of, changing the baby, feeding the baby, making sure this and that, and insurance and all the other technical logistics needed to happen, so that there was no there was time. I don't remember if I hopped on here and there Zoom meetings. I listened to a lot of recordings in that period of time. I was definitely perpetually tired during that time because the baby's schedule was still not aligned. Um, and every like 3 hours in the middle of the night, wake up and then have trouble falling back to sleep and whatever. Like, was a whole. It's a whole journey. But and especially that we didn't have, like I said, we didn't have much help. We hired like some night nurses in the beginning for a few nights here and there so we could get some shut eye. Um, I guess the point is on some level, yeah, I forgot. I'm jumping back, but even before when we got married, I'll just jump back to there. Like the week after marriage, we sat down and made a budget. I make X, you make Y. Let's put it all in a spreadsheet. What are our expenses? We use the $0 budget, meaning every month every dollar is allocated. So if it means it goes to savings, it goes to whatever shopping expenses, bills, rent, everything is on the list. Every little purchase, every recurring purchase, credit cards, whatever it is all on the list, and we end up with $0 every month. Um, and what that does is it tells me where every dollar is going, basically, and the money is not floating, and we're able to plan vacations, put aside funds for different things that are needed. For example, till the baby was born, we were able to put aside about close to 10 grand because we worked responsibly and saved and worked up to it. Um, and then we had a lot to work with. We were able to take the luxury of, like I said, sending her to the convalescent home, taking certain liberties with getting night nurses in the beginning. They're prohibitively expensive, and you know all that. But the point was, we worked together as a team. We kept communicating a lot about how we feel about things. Especially in the beginning, there was a lot of communication about I'm tired, you're tired. Okay, you take a nap, I'll stay with the baby. There was a lot of that back and forth. I don't actually remember. Somehow, miraculously, um, we didn't get stressed out in the beginning so much because we just kept passing the ball. The ball was always up in the air, but we were like passing it between each other. And I think that's a miracle of both of us working recovery, having a connection with a higher power, and all that. Um, and the bottom line is a lot of, and after that, I mean, I'll throw this in. I know it's on recording, but I'm not worried about it because I'm saying it for the benefit of new parents. When you're a new parent, you're not used to you're not used to the idea of constantly having a baby, holding a baby, whatever. And it is normal to sometimes drop the baby. And we called emergency services a few times, and once or twice they came down to the house. But after 3 months, we stopped dropping the baby because he got used to it already. But I think around 3, maybe 4 months, I think, I don't know, something like that. It maybe happened like 5 or 6 times. And every time, thankfully, she was fine. The symptoms, whatever, like they just asked us to make sure, like she didn't throw up and she's breathing and she cried right away and whatever. But the bottom line was there's a lot of it came up with a lot of conversations with my wife before and after all these kind of incidents or other incidents where you feel guilty. Where another piece of advice from a friend of mine came very in handy. If your child lives up to the first year, then you've done your job as a parent. Doesn't matter what happens, because there's so much like quote trauma we could think. Oh my God, I'm subjecting my baby to this trauma. I'm subjecting them to whatever. They're going to grow up different. I don't know why. Um, but to understand that as a human, I'm not looking for anything near perfection. And it like the big book says, anything like perfect adherence to these terms, to these spiritual principles. Um, and I think it works. I think to apply it in all my affairs, it works in every area of my life. To understand that I'm human and I will never achieve 100% in any area for the most part. Um, it means I put in my best, and like I said before, I trust God with the results. So yeah, to bring it back to that idea. So we had a lot of conversations. My wife apparently had a lot more guilt and self judgment around that. I've been graced to been hit in the face over and over while I was dating and before that with a lot of self judgment related inventory and fear. And I did a lot of I still do a consistent amount of fear inventory. That's, I would say, my mainstream. I think I was given a gift because I was able, like, on a regular basis, when I go through my day, there are 3, 4, or 5 fears, sometimes more, that pop up, and I'm like, wow, I was experiencing a lot of fear today, right? I still have one phone call for now to make, like, related to this job, to call my current boss, and there's fear involved. What's she gonna say? It sounds, all of a sudden in my mind, the whole proposal that I'm giving to her sounds awkward. I'm just using an example. Um, and I was able to like shut that off in a way and just be able to say, doesn't matter what I think she will say, because that's not relevant to the story here. What's relevant to the story here is I'm going to be candid and honest, and whatever I need to tell her about, and then let God decide what happens with her response, because I can't control her response. I can't manipulate it. Um, but the point is like the ability to identify that liar in my head, so to speak, the addict in my head that wants to self sabotage and has all um, these ideas. I love from the movie Inside Out, the how fear is like the evil and corroding thread, as the big book says. It really like derails any kind of logical plan that I have. But the more that I'm able to see in my mind, not trust every thought my mind has, filter it through. I can filter, if I'm really stuck, I can filter through the 4 absolutes. I could do a 10 step and call up a friend and get their input if I'm really nervous about something. But most of the time these days, I've learned to like integrate that 10 step into, as the big book says, as we go along. So as we go along to me means sometimes it's just shooting a text and letting them know, hey, this is what happened. God would have me be A, B, C, D, and 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 then go move on with the day, because that's the 10 step is not meant for me to stop 4 times a day and have a 20-minute phone call with someone, and then my day kind of has to be put on hold because I'm in distress about something. I mean, it could happen, but that's not the for me. That's not the goal. The goal is to be able to go as I go along, be able to identify those fears as they're cropping up, and be able to see, hey, this is fear, not hold on to the fear for like 45 minutes, be crippled with anxiety, and then then oh wait, let me actually make a phone call, let me write an inventory, and then it's like a few hours like went by, and it only gets worse over time as I let it sit there. Um, yeah. Um, so in that time also, so I want to say like the amount of engagement, I'll just, I guess, I don't know how much time I still have, but I'll the amount of time I spent in recovery was, I want to say, 100%. Because recovery to me means being able to be in the firing line of life, as and being able to face life successfully, as to quote a couple lines from the book, but basically being able to cope with whatever life throws at me. And if that means being fully present with my wife, that for me is the definition of recovery. It, you know, and then over time it changed, and I started, getting back in touch with some sponsees, getting new ones, and being able. It's a bit more of a balancing act now with a baby, and then like Fridays I get to spend time with the baby, even to this day for now, um, unless that'll change because I don't work Fridays. Um, but yeah, there was another thing, I guess, that happened a few months in when I went back to work that was very difficult for me emotionally. The only thing I did about it was I did a lot of 10 steps about it, and I shared about it. And by doing a lot of 10 steps and sharing, I found that, hey, everyone else has the same experience, and it's completely normal and healthy. And the experience was that when I went back to work, there was like a major void in my heart, because as much as I like wanted to get back into work and get back into like a general flow of life, at the same time, the fact that I spent like 90% of the day with my daughter before, and now I'm spending like 10%. I'm seeing her for a couple of minutes in the morning and a couple of minutes at night when I get home. And when I get home, it's after a work day and I'm exhausted. So I don't even have the energy to like spend so much time with her, but I do want to. So it's like a mix. And by doing a lot of, I didn't have to do like written inventory on it. I just made sure to share a lot about it, and got feedback from people, 10 stepped about it. And like, it boiled down to like, what am I afraid of? It boiled down to, why am I so frustrated if this is really the way of the world, so to speak? This is the way life is um, supposed to unfold. Like, this is the lot that God has given me. And were I to somehow be completely financially free and be able to spend time fully 100%, that would be my fantasy dream. But that's not reality. Reality is that, for at least for right now, I have a job and other stuff that um, I have to prioritize, although I don't want to. And it was like getting to that shift of acceptance of, number one, intellectually, like I was kind of sharing, like with the program speak, and then number two, like dealing with the emotions more of feeling hurt, but not having anyone, like there's no one to blame there. There's no. It's kind of funny. I feel like hurt and like, so to speak, shortchanged about the experience. Maybe it was for a couple of weeks that I felt like shortchanged with the experience. But as I shared about it and as I let go more and more and more regarding regarding you know regarding the situation, I got to a place of acceptance, both spiritually and emotionally, to be able to learn that it's okay to express the feelings, like I mentioned, like you mentioned in the introduction about ACA, and learning the balance between everything. There's a spiritual answer to everything, but not always is a spiritual answer the correct answer right now. In other words, if I'm hurt right now, so to run and do a 10 step may not be the right thing for this minute, because I need to first feel what I'm feeling instead of running away. Sometimes for me, a 10 step could be running away from the problem. The problem is that I feel hurt. And then if I sit and stay feel hurt for a minute, I can feel that and process it, and then okay, fine, I could go do a 10th step. But if I can't give up something that I never even fully experienced in the first place. Like, and I'll talk about that for a minute. I found in the beginning, I may have mentioned it, I don't know, the other thing a couple of years ago, but I definitely had this journey with my emotions where at the beginning of recovery, I was an emotional baby and everything would set me off. And then over time, I got better at it, developed a thick skin, but then something from apparently from childhood probably kicked in. And I reverted back to my pre-recovery self where I didn't feel safe to express my emotions. So therefore it's difficult for me to be vulnerable. So therefore, anytime something comes up, the answer is inventory. And there were a lot of different things that came up regarding that over time navigating in marriage, being able to validate my wife and all that, that and with the work with ACA, which propelled me into learning how to start expressing more emotions, and at the same time not be the emotional wreck that I used to be. Meaning to find the balance between zero, having no emotion, and completely stoic, and I'm a complete mystic, nihilistic, whatever, everything just goes kind of person. Because there's no, everything's great, everything's cool, everything's okay. I'm in God's plan. Where yes, I'm in God's plan and whatever, but there is a very strong place to experience life from an emotional angle as well, because God created emotions for a reason. There's a reason to experience the highs and lows of life. There's a meaning to that experience. And what I learned and what I'm learning is that having a so-called flat experience versus an up and down experience is it could just feel very okay, but I miss all the twists and turns of life, and I miss what life's about. Um, and whatever, I'll throw in like a metaphor. There's like whatever in like in a certain TV show, there was someone who hacked the plane's GPS system, and it looked like everything was going okay. And meanwhile, they put a bug in the system that basically made the plane almost dive into the side of a mountain. And when they pulled out the USB that was causing this hack, all of a sudden all the systems were running crazy, and if and they were able to see, wow, we almost hit the side of a mountain, versus before it looked like clear blue skies ahead, nothing going on. And I feel like when it comes to recovery and emotions, there could be a place where I feel like hacked, so to speak, by that by the just using recovery without having the emotional side of it, you know, um, in being unable to express anger. I feel like actually I've hit a very interesting growth period where more recently in a conversation or whatever, it got heated, and I screamed and I got a little angry, and I apologized for it afterwards and made amends. But in a way, in the back of my mind, I'm like, wait, there's some part of me now that's starting to actually be expressed. There's a part of me that wasn't expressed before that all of a sudden now is coming to be expressed. And I feel like on some level that has to do with my work in ACA, my continued work with recovery in general, and more than that, to tie it back to this whole talk, having a child brought up a lot more emotion, and made me in a way softer, more lovey-dovey, whatever, in certain ways with my child. And it brought up certain more passion, certain things that were untapped that I didn't know before. That I was told by a lot of people, you're going to experience much more emotion, even if you're not so in touch with your emotions. You're going to experience more emotions once you have a child. And in a weird way, I could say that becoming angry for me now is a positive, because I wasn't able to. My wife, until like now, and we dated for like 5.5 months, and then when we had a whole drama with getting married and whatever, family drama, and she never saw me get angry or barely even sad. Like, the beginning was like disconcerting and confusing to her. But and now, I mean, I don't think that I should just get angry at random, but I think that I've tapped into something over time that I haven't tapped in before. And to me, that's in a way in a way, God shining his light on me and just showing me the next step in the journey. The next step in the journey is being able to know when to be angry, when it's appropriate. Anger, there are times where it's appropriate to express anger about something. Um, there are times where it's completely inappropriate, and then I just lose myself and I have to make amends. But yeah, that's I guess that is another leg of the journey of now experiencing some emotions that I never experienced like in a really long time, maybe since childhood, and then being able to use the tools of recovery and being able to um, you know experience those emotions and then do the recovery process to give it up to God. So I think for now, I think I'm good.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Yitzy, for sharing that experience, strength, and hope, and your experience in becoming a new parent in recovery and walking that path. I've written a few questions here, and and a reminder to our live audience: if you have a question for Yitzy, please post it in the chat. If you want to remain anonymous, you can send me a direct message in the chat, or you can post at the beginning of your question, "Hey, anonymous, please," and I won't announce your first name. If you just send it in through there, I'll announce your first name. But just want to give you that option. I'll start off with one of the questions that I've written here, Yitzy, and I'll start right towards the end. You talked about how, anger now can sometimes be a positive when expressed in a healthy manner. Um, how do you maintain serenity, I guess, is something that I try and seek in that while having these emotions and expressing these emotions, how can you maintain some semblance of serenity in those moments to keep that connection with your higher power, with God?
Yes, that's a very interesting question. And number one, I could say that since it's only been like a recent experience, only a few months, that I don't know how much experience I would have with specifically related to anger, but related to emotion and whatever. I learned from one of my past sponsors how to I spoke a little bit about it, how to combat fear and how to see fear. So if I'm able to before, it's not always, it's not a I was going to say, yeah, it's not a foolproof system, but a lot of times, if I'm able to before reacting, I could feel that I'm angry about something, and I could say, okay, what ultimately every character defect, like the 12 and 12 says, leads back to fear. Fear is the chief activator, and even though it says in the book to watch for selfish dishonesty, resentment, and fear, selfishness is just fear of not getting what I want. Dishonesty is fear of not trusting God that I'm going to get what I want. I could go into more detail about it, but in short, if I'm able to, I think for me, this one of the simplest ways to do that is to identify what that fear is and be aware of, okay, I'm afraid of this, therefore I'm getting angry. And is this something that's justified? Is this something that I have to work through? Is being aware of it, even when I do get angry, just being aware of where the anger is coming from is half the battle. And then maintaining serenity is that afterwards, going through whatever it is, and then afterwards, um, when if something happens, and then calming down, and then seeing, okay, is there an amends to be made? Because the way the book puts it is our past is our greatest asset. And I find it in a weird way that even my current past, the most recent past, can be a great asset. In other words, sometimes I have where I got really resentful at someone, and then I wrote an inventory, and I'm like, thank you for doing this injustice to me, so that now I could get closer to God. Because without you, I wouldn't have had to write this inventory. I may have been okay, but now that was a God moment. It was a moment of me being able to have a point of contact with God that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, good. Thank you for walking through that. I appreciate that. That helps see a different perspective of it. Got a question that came in from an anonymous attendee here. This person says, I just want to thank you for sharing. I became a parent in recovery as well, and it's good to know I'm not alone. How do you make time for your daily spiritual practice? And how is your connection with God during the day?
So yeah. So it's been up and down regarding that. I feel like if I put in the effort right in the morning, Doesn't always happen, but I try to for a few minutes to say. And sometimes it could be when I'm in the bathroom for the morning, even for 2 3 minutes. It, that's what and thanks for reminding me, whoever you anonymous are, um, about when I was like a new parent, and like I remember that was the time that I sat with God throughout the day, and the rest of the day was just like think to think to think, and there was no space. There was no space to sit down and meditate, you know. And then I'd go to sleep exhausted, and that was just a cycle that happened until things straightened out. But then, um, the connection with God is knowing that this is God's will. I think. I think part of it is the self doubt of like, is this really God's will? Does God want me to somehow put in more time or effort into it? I recently found, so far I was only able to do it one day, but I recently found that if I sit down at work for 15 minutes, nothing, and like we have a porch outside, and I went out and I took a 15-minute meditation session. Nothing happened, meaning there's plenty of like downtime at work. It's not crazy busy every minute of the day, and if I sit 15 minutes, nothing's going to happen. And then I could go back to work, and I'm just so much more recalibrated, aligned, and whatever. I mean, I've often used this suggestion if it's because something came up and I'm a little emotionally turmoiled or whatever. And sometimes if someone messages me, "Hey, I'm like in the obsession. What do I do?" And I'm like, are you at work? Yeah. Can you go to the bathroom for 5 minutes and just sit? And I do that myself. And it works wonders. Um, it works wonders to do that. And then one more thing that I remember, a friend of mine in AA told me that I use as often as needed. I can reset my day, um, many times a day, as many times as I want. I could just, the day went to crap, I could restart the day. I could just completely, because I just completely restart, because a day is a mental construct in a way, and I'm able to just, okay, what was in the past is the past. Make believe right now I woke up. Groundhog Day kind of idea. Make believe right now I woke up, and now is, I don't know, 6 7 a.m., whatever it is, and I'm starting the day, and all this stuff didn't happen. I could put it on to the side. It's hard to do, but once you like lean into it and allow it to kind of happen, it feels silly, because what do you mean? It's 3 p.m. Like the day, you know what I mean? There's only 4 hours left until like my kids come home, whatever, whatever. And but if I'm able to like take that space and make that mental break from from the reality that I told myself it is, then I'm able to, it works to like just clean the slate and try to get a new perspective into the day.
Thank you, Yitzy, for walking through that. Good stuff. I want to kind of branch off of that same topic a little bit. You mentioned that when the baby was born, when your daughter was born, you let your sponsees know, "Hey, I'm going off the grid basically for a little while. Um, I'll let you know when I'm back." Whatever, you took a little hiatus from actively working with sponsees, from regular meeting attendance, those types of things. If and when you are blessed with the possibility of another child, would you do that same process again with your recovery, or would you do things a little bit different the second time around? What are your thoughts on that?
So the thoughts on that are, I think it's a kind of bridge that I have to cross when I get there, because it will have to depend on what's going on. Another child, with this one being a toddler, there are challenges that I'll know, because we're already, me and my wife are already parents, so it's easier with the first. But they say generally that a transition from the first to the second could be more challenging. So I mean, what I would do is give people a heads up, and if possible, sometimes pass them off to others. Like I did, one or two people that were like in middle of work, I found someone like to help them continue. And I think, I honestly feel like I don't regret doing that. The hard part was for me letting go of this narrative in my head: if I don't sponsor someone, then I'm not in recovery. And to learn, it wasn't clear to me, by the way, that to do what I did for those 3 months or so was recovery. It became clear to me as I was going, and as I'm like just sitting on the toilet for 2 minutes. That's when these little thoughts came to me. and be like, Yitzy, you're okay. You're connected to God. You're in recovery. You feel the warmth. You feel the love. It's intense, yes, but it's okay. That's when those thoughts came to me. They weren't, because the rest of the day is haywire. The rest of the day is from task to task to task without almost thinking in the beginning. Like I said, an autopilot. So I don't know how I would do it the next time around. It's very possible that I would. It's very possible that I'd have a little bit more bandwidth and maybe be able to juggle a little bit more. And if I would be able to attend the meeting regularly, commitments regularly, etc., then I I would do that. But it's something that I don't think that even praying about it now or praying about it a day before the birth would even answer the question.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So something you said that I think was pretty interesting, and I loved it. You said that a friend told you, "Hey, if your child is alive after a year of after being born, you've done your job." I want to take that and relate that a little bit to the messiness or the difficulty of quote unquote raising a new sponsee, walking hand in hand with them, putting them on the path. It may be full of imperfections and everything. How can you apply that little bit of information? Hey, if if they're alive after a year, you've done your job. How can you apply that into sponsoring somebody?
So, oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I was taught by one of my sponsors, my only job is to lay out the spiritual toolkit at their feet. And like someone else said, you make an introduction. Hi, Jack. God, Jack. That's my job. And then when the hand falls out, remind them how to put it back in. But I make absolutely no attempt to tell them how to work their program. I barely even follow up if they're taking my suggestions or not, because that's not on me. In other words, I have a newish sponsee right now, and we're like moving slowly for different reasons, time wise and whatever. And I gave him like some basics to like start reading the big book, start reading 86 to 88 every day, whatever, 84 to 88 every day. And I said, if you do that, I said, when I did that, my life got better. And he's struggling with depression and whatever other different things. And he just comes to me in that, and I'm like, I just repeat myself, and then I move on. I don't make a big deal of it. My job with Espansi um, is to make the material accessible to them. My and I'm grateful that for me also part of my journey was like not being able to get sober for a while. So therefore, when I have sponsees that are struggling and not able to get sober, I don't take it as a personal affront. I don't take it as somehow there's something inferior with me or with them. It's just sometimes, by the way, there could be, that it could not be a fit, even though I'm a great sponsor, and I'm working with them and I'm very tolerant with them, but they may need something a little different, and they could go to someone else and get sober. And that alone is not either a poor reflection on me. That is just maybe the dynamic. Maybe it wasn't the time for them. Maybe they needed to go through whatever they needed to go through. That's not because I could be playing God in a sponsee's life. The minute I try to control their recovery or the pace of what their recovery looks like, or when they really have that moment, the turning point, as we call it in recovery, the point where everything starts like looking up, where they really surrender, where they really get the program in their bones. Um, that that's not on me. That's between them and God when that actually happens. So yeah, and so regarding the the sponsee, so if a sponsee leaves me without a bitter taste in their mouth, if I want to put it into words, if they decide to leave, I don't usually fire sponsees. I don't believe I hired them, so I don't fire them. But I once let someone go because it was a disservice. After, in short, I was a sponsor for a while. He took a hiatus of work in step four for about a year, and I kept seeing him in meetings, and just I never really like followed up with him because he knew I was available, and anytime he would call me, I would let him know that I am available if you'd like to resume, whatever. And then at some point we finally made it to step nine, and then he wasn't making his amends, and then he was just sitting around and floundering and not really doing anything. I'm like, I feel like it's a disservice for me to call you my sponsee. So maybe I could maybe connect you with someone else or whatever. Like I offered that, but I felt at that point like it was like they call it a sponsor in name only, and I felt like it was a disservice for me to continue working with him in those circumstances. Other than that, if my goal is that the sponsee should feel from me the love and light that I received in the program, and hopefully not judgment and criticism, and hopefully, for lack of a better term, a sponsor sponsee experience hopefully shouldn't be the same as going through childhood again with
That's
another
funny.
authority
Yeah.
figure. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good. That I like how you close that up. Well, I liked your experience there. Um, you talked about early on that you attend a handful of meetings every week from different fellowships. You attend multiple fellowships. What benefits do you find in attending multiple fellowships for yourself? And what are some possible, I don't know, maybe complications that can happen from that?
So yeah, so the benefit I find is that every fellowship, even within the same faction, let's say the S fellowships or whatever, AANA, whatever you want to call it, will have its own language and its own. Besides that, each meeting has its own unique message. Each fellowship has a unique way of transmitting that message, and the beauty of being able to see different things from different perspectives is very beneficial. Now, the downside can be if someone has like a certain sobriety definition or whatever, and they go to another fellowship and then they hear they hear something. Oh wait, this person does X, Y, Z and still calls themselves sober. Maybe I could do that too, because they're looking for a loophole. So for me, what was beneficial is to know that I have my home fellowship, so to speak, and the other ones are great, but I don't need to take the not they're not negative because they could work for certain people. Um, and in a weird way, me and my sponsor in some parameters have different experiences with our sobriety in the definition and specifics. The things that I would do that that for him would be sober or vice versa. But that's not what our relationship is about. Our relationship is about two people that are trying to walk this path, that are connected to God. And like for me, one of the strong goals of my sponsor is that he has a very strong prayer meditation practice every single morning for like I think about 8 years now. He hasn't missed a day. Every single morning he, even if he's flying or whatever. And for me that like gives me a lot of inspiration about that. I do things a little bit differently, whatever. I have a check-in partner, and it's not every day, it's work days, and the other days I don't always make it happen, but whatever. I try my best with that. But my point is to derail. Yeah, so he's my sponsor is SAA. He has a little bit of a different definition than the one I have, and it's sometimes whatever. It generally doesn't lead to any discrepancies, but sometimes like there could be judgment from some people about about certain things. So I just learned over time not to bring it up to certain people. I don't need to share every nuance of everything with certain people if they're not going, you know what I mean? If it's not going to be a positive experience, sometimes that could be an issue where I experience judgment. Well, what do you mean you do X? Your sponsor does X, Y, Z. So he's not even sober. Like people go into like all that kind of jargon, and I'm like just rolling my eyes. I'm like, okay, and um, which is just a good response sometimes to like whatever life throws at you. Okay, and it's like a good way of just surrender and not like fighting, not arguing, just being in whatever zone I'm in. But yeah, so I would say for whoever does feel like they want to check out other fellowships, to probably best to do that once you're solid in one, and then you can branch out and look at different fellowships, gain different perspectives. But if you start in the beginning and you're gaining different perspectives, then you don't really have a consistent message. The message will be that you're hearing is a little bit from SLAA, a little bit from SAA, a little bit from SA, and a couple of others, and like whatever they are. But they can be very confusing because everyone uses a bit of a different vehicle, so to speak, to carry that message.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Yitzy. All right, we have another comment followed by a question from an anonymous attendee. Person says, I didn't know how to be in recovery and be pregnant and become a new parent. I lost complete contact to the program, and I only have been able to reconnect to the program 4 months ago. As I completely broke down after becoming a parent, I relapsed emotionally. It's inspiring to hear how it worked out for you and your wife. I can use that today, and no matter what I learned from my experience. So Here's the question. Do you today work with sponsees again? And if yes, how and when do you have the time for it as you also work?
Yeah, I work and I'm in school and a bunch of other things. So I try to get creative. There's one the ACA meeting that I attend. I sometimes meet with a sponsee before for a half hour because I have that ability. I was usually like whatever, just my schedule, the way it works out. I leave work, I stay in work a little later that day, and then I leave and go straight from there to the meeting. So I have a half hour that I can do then. Other than that, I mean, I try to be available throughout the week, like for phone calls, but for step work, I currently only have one other sponsee, and we usually meet on Sundays, Sunday mornings, like right before school. We meet in person, some whatever. Sometimes I make it to a meeting before or whatever. But we meet after that meeting in that clubhouse, and then my school is like nearby. But yeah, it is. There isn't. I would say that it's very important to pace myself. My wife has been very very helpful in general in recovery for me and in general life for me to be like kind of my scheduler and office manager for lack of a better term, because sometimes I'll be like, oh, I want to take on this commitment. She'll be like, well, well, you have XYZ also that day. Do you think that taking this on may be too much? Like she'll help me pace it, and she'll be a real in the most positive way possible. She'll be the one who runs that schedule for me, because in my mind sometimes it just gets garbled and I take on too much. So if I before I would take on a new sponsee, I usually like will discuss it with my wife because it directly affects her. And I'll also mention that maybe it was like 2 months ago, I started working with someone else. I wanted to try to work with him on Fridays, and then that ended up he ended up saying that it wasn't a good fit, whatever, but not and then and because I only had a certain amount of time and he needed more time and more attention, and he found someone else. But the bottom line, after I finished with him, whatever, after we like broke it off, so to speak, we're still in touch and everything. And I shared with him, I'm like, actually, I feel like I was just overdoing it with taking on another sponsee at this point, with everything else going on in life. So it's being able to run this by, in my case, I ran it by my wife and running it, or and also some other fellows, whatever. Being able to run it by whoever your support network is, whoever you know, and being able to see like what works for you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so as we get ready to wrap up here, Yitzi, as we get ready to wrap up, do you have any final words of wisdom for us before we go into the closing of this?
Um, I don't know offhand, honestly. The one thing that actually comes up is I wanted to respond to that fellow that about the pregnant and whatever. At the end of the day, after everything is said and done, um, hopefully either you got to that place or you will, where the experience where you'll hopefully realize that the experiences you had were not necessarily your control, and like to look at it like as acceptance of this is what happened. It's okay that it happened. Maybe there's things I could do in the future to try to do my best that it doesn't happen again, but I don't need to beat myself up over the fact that, oh my god, this happened and I fell apart. So it was wrong. It was a wrong experience. Because as I've heard from one of my sponsors, there's no wrong way to have an experience. Everyone's experience, whatever it is, positive or negative, is always valid because that's the way they experienced it. And they can't like turn the clock back to have a different experience. That's just the experience they had. Um, and yeah, and I think that all boils down really to that acceptance is the answer. Ultimately, after all the work, after all the inventory, after all the self care and lack of self judgment, self compassion, it leads to a place of acceptance. And like a friend of mine, like I really appreciate more and more what a good friend of mine says, that we can't really understand. People in recovery talk a lot about love. And the trouble is that they're really just using a flowery word that they don't really have much of a concept of. and really it's more about what they need to hear more about is acceptance, about accepting the other person as they are, whatever, which could amount to love. But when you use a term like acceptance, it's a more digestible um, term versus using a term like love, which is so, in a way, so vast and so nuanced that 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 it gets either overused or diluted when it's not used properly. But yeah, that's what I got.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Yitzy. This was a very good Rico 12 weekly speaker meeting. If we missed your question out there in the live audience, or if you have more questions that you'd like to pose, please consider joining our WhatsApp community. To join that, you can email me at rico12pod@gmail.com. I'll get you the link to join in that conversation. If you haven't already done so, please consider jumping in and rating and reviewing Rico 12 on Apple Podcasts. It's really a stronger than you would think way to work to step 12 and getting this message out to more people. We make sure to check out the Afro Euro recordings that Karen A hosts on many Wednesdays from Israel. And next Friday, we will hear from a couple of first-time Rico 12 speakers, Nick and Carrington, whose topic will be stepping into action. I'm excited we've had a couple of couples that have done these in the past, and I'm excited to have this one come in and do this. If you'd like to be considered as a future Rico 12 speaker, please send me an email once again to rico12pod@gmail.com, and we can get that set up. Right now, I'm scheduling into June. Stay tuned on the WhatsApp community and on our email list for more information. And if you're not on that email list, come join in. You can do that once again by sending me an email. I'll get you on it. Now, let's launch off into the rest of the day with the fog light prayer that Yitzy will stay for us.
Thank you. Are you able to pull it? You able to pull it up, or?
You want me to share my screen with it or something?
Yeah. If you could, that would
you know what? Let me copy and paste it into the chat. I'll copy and paste it into the chat because it's in the middle of a whole bunch of other stuff that's
okay.
Sharing my screen would be really messy with it. All right. It's in the chat now.
Okay. God, let your light shine through me like a fog light so that those who are lost, sick, and dying find your love through me. Amen.
Amen. Love that prayer. I'd never heard it before. Grateful for you to come share that with us, Yitzy. Remember, everybody, there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find God now. Keep coming back, and when you do, come all the way in, sit all the way down. Let's trudge this road of happy destiny together. Work it. You are worth it.
I've seen stars fall from above. I've fallen in and out of love. I've been high and I've been low. Now I know I just can't do this on my own. I've seen a boy become a man. He got lost without a plan. He's so far away from home. Now I know I just can't do this on my own. Your arms surrounding me. Your touch is grounding me. No longer searching for purpose all alone. 'Cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. I'm looking for the words to say. You make the world a better place, and I can call that place my home. 'Cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. Your arms surrounding me. Your touch is grounding me. No longer searching for purpose all alone. 'Cause now I know that I just can't no stars fall from above. I fell in and out of love. I got high and I fell low. But now I know that I just can't do this on my own. No, I just can't do this on my own. I just can't do this on my own.